Alrighty, so this is going to be the start of the Life After Narcissistic Abuse series and how to build a new life. And today I want to talk about energy and emotions. And I want to get to just the absolute foundation, the root of what's going on between the relationship of the narcissist and the victim. And so the way we can really boil it down is an exchange of energy and a use of emotion in order to do that. So can illustrate this. We have the narc, and we have you. And so what's happening is there's a relationship between the narcissist and yourself. And obviously it's negative. So we all have energy. You know, the narcissist has energy, and you have energy, and there's energy all around us. And so what's happening is the narcissist is using energy that they have inside themselves, and they're actually channeling energy as well. And they're using emotions to do this. And the big emotion that they're using is hate. You know, hate, jealousy, fear, all the negative emotions. And so what they're doing is their ultimate goal is energy. That's the root of all of this. So what they're doing is they're using energy with the emotion of hate, and they're directing it at you. And in turn, you know, it's a negative emotion, and so it's affecting you negatively, causing you to in turn hate yourself, and then it causes destruction in your life. And so there's a principle that we have to keep in mind when we're going to use to understand this and get through it. And so the principle is it's balance in nature. And so what is balance in nature? It's something that we know to be a fact, and it's like positive and negative, light and dark, hate and love. And so for anything that is happening, there's always a balance opposition to it. So the narcissist trying to get energy using emotions, they're using the emotion of hate. On the other side of that is love. And that is the key of how we turn this around. So let me get back to explaining this some more. Okay, so the narcissist is using their energy. They're directing it at you. In turn, it's the hate and all the negative emotions coming at you. It's causing you to hate yourself, destruction in your life. And then in turn, they're sucking energy from you. And they have all their different techniques and tactics to do so, but it's really rooted in negativity and hate. And so they start directing this energy at you. It diminishes, you know, your vibration, your quality. You're hating yourself. There's destruction in your life. And then now they've got you hooked, and that's how they're extracting energy from you. And this was me for like 40 years. And I was hating myself, and my life was chaos, and I was actively destroying my life. And so what's interesting about this is to cause destruction, it takes a great deal of energy. So, you know, the narcissist is stealing energy from you, but all of this, there's energy going into you as well, because to destroy your life, you know, with like drinking and drugs and, you know, bad behavior and all that kind of stuff, it does take a great deal of energy. So you in turn, when you're in this state, you are channeling energy too, and the narcissist is taking that from you. And so this is what's important, is it's my understanding, and what the point I'm trying to get is emotions are the key to energy and to bringing energy through and using energy. And so the big game of the narcissist is using negative emotions like hate to channel energy directed at people and then take it back to get more energy. So that's their main thing, is they want energy. So this relationship that is happening, this is the trauma bond. And then this is what, essentially one narcissist indoctrinates you in the trauma bond, and then you seek it out from other narcissists. And some people never escape this. Their entire life is this, and they hate themselves, and their life is full of chaos and destruction. And so the goal with, breaking free from the narcissist and building a new life is we need to turn this around in the individual, you or somebody you know. And this is how we do it. Okay, so, and this is where you're probably at. A lot of people are at this point. We've figured this out. And so how do we, how do we figure this out? It's awareness and truth. So, most likely you're aware of narcissistic abuse. You're aware of the negative types of emotions and all the negative stuff that the narcissists do, to trauma bond you, to take your energy, that make you hate yourself and causing chaos and destruction in your life. And, you've broken the trauma bond through awareness and truth. That's how you break the trauma bond. You have to be aware of the situation, and you have to understand the truth of what's happening. And so a lot of people are at this point. They're aware because there's a ton of information and knowledge about narcissistic abuse, and they understand the truth of the situation. So they've done things to separate themselves from the narcissist, like, they've gone no contact, or they're in like gray rock ninja mode, like myself. That's basically it. You're either, it's pretty cut and dry. Like the narcissist is either, in your life or they're not. And I think what ends up happening is a lot of people discover the truth, and they have the awareness, and they're understanding what narcissistic abuse is, but they still hate themselves, and there's chaos and destruction in their life. And so my big thing is, how do we use emotions to change this? Because, the opposite of this is love and construction. These two forces oppose these. And so these forces exist within you because hate and destruction exists within you. Love and construction exists within you. It's just your energy is going towards the hate and the destruction. So the big thing is, how do we turn hate into love, destruction into building or construction? And the way you do it is it's forgiveness. When you hate someone and you forgive them, you're released from that hate. I learned this lesson when I was first healing. I wasn't awake to the narcissist abuse stuff, but I was turning the hate and destruction into my life to love and building. And the way I did this was, I thought I had to go to people and forgive them. That was the idea I had. Said, okay, I need to go to these people. And so I sought out the last narcissist girlfriend I had that caused me to have a lot of drinking problems. So I went to her, and I forgave her. And what was interesting was, I was in the process of, like, we were having dinner, and I was sitting there talking to her, and I was like, all is forgiven, everything that went down, and I realized in that moment was, I'm not forgiving her. I was just using her as a mirror I was actually forgiving myself. And so you don't have to go to the narcissist and forgive them. The biggest thing is the narcissist has instilled hate and destruction in your life, and most likely you hate yourself. And I mean, I know I did. So the biggest thing is you have to forgive yourself. And however you do this, if you write yourself a letter, if you just internalize it, in your mind, or if it's a verbal thing, like, I forgive myself for hating myself. And I forgive myself for the mistakes I made. Because, when you're surrounded in all the chaos of hate and destruction, you're causing trauma and turmoil in other people's lives as well. And you can feel really guilty for that. And there's a lot of guilt associated with cutting off the narcissist, especially if you haven't moved on from, the hate and destruction and the negative feelings that have been, all that negative energy that's been put into you. So a big thing is practicing forgiveness for yourself. And, reaching out to other people that maybe, you want some forgiveness with, to give forgiveness to, like friends that you feel like you wronged, or because I was in this hateful, destructive state when I was like drinking a ton, and I was really reckless, and, I definitely affected people negatively. So, go to those people and, apologize, offer forgiveness, all that kind of stuff. And you'll find it is going to be the mirror effect. And ultimately, so you're forgiving yourself. And so forgiveness is really, it's the linchpin in between hate and love. At least for me. I mean, all I know is from my own, experience with all of this. And for me, I really feel like if we forgive ourselves for hating ourselves, we can begin turning it into love and to building. And so the key here is to remember that energy and emotion is ultimately what's going to drive all of this. So, once you have broken from the narcissist, you're in this kind of hate and destruction phase, and, but you have awareness and you have the truth. And this is where you start implementing things to start building your own energy back up. You have to build up your energy and start channeling energy and building energy within yourself. And it starts with forgiveness. And then the next phase is loving yourself, because you hated yourself for so long and it was causing destruction in your life. Okay, so now you're forgiving yourself for what you've been experiencing, and that's the balance in nature. So you're using forgiveness to flip the balance, to start loving yourself. And once you start loving yourself, this was like step 3 for me, and that's when I quit drinking and like smoking weed. Because when you start to love yourself and you understand, the health implications, and that was the big thing that helped me with not drinking alcohol anymore, was I just started learning about the health implications. And that was really eye-opening for me, because alcohol, it's really detrimental to your health. And smoking cigarettes too. I used to smoke cigarettes, and, learning about that. So when you start practicing love, when you're forgiving yourself, you're starting to love yourself, you naturally start gravitating towards things that will boost your energy. And your energy will start building. And what will happen is it'll start compounding on itself. And so the more you practice love, the more, you're building. I have construction here, but I should put building. The more you start building your life, and the hate and destruction just start to disappear. You'll find you'll have a lot less negative thoughts. You're not feeling so bad. You're not so negative in general. You're more optimistic. You're having ideas about, positive things. You're a more positive person to be around. And so a lot of people are still stuck in, they have the awareness, they have the truth, they've cut off the narc, but they still hate themselves, and they're still causing destruction and chaos in their lives. And so the big thing is forgive yourself. Just whatever it takes, man. That's the whole, for me, the forgiveness was the linchpin from the hate. And it's what helped it, because we know from Balance in Nature that love balances hate. And so all we need to do is just, use the key of forgiveness to start pushing us towards loving ourselves. And it's, once you are in that, space of loving yourself and acceptance, part of forgiveness is also, acceptance. Accepting yourself, accepting the mistakes that you've made, all these things, that these two kind of go hand in hand for you to start loving yourself. And what ends up happening is when you are in the hate, destructful state, it's so heavily fueled because it's not in alignment with who you really are. It's not your true self. We're not supposed to be people that destroy. I mean, the narcissist, they are people of destruction, and that is aligned in themselves. But there's something darker and demonic about them, and they're naturally aligned with that force within them. But you and me are positive, helpful, uplifting people. That's our nature. And so when that hate and destruction is dominating our lives, it can really, it doesn't align with who we are. And so it has a very strong force, and it can snowball and get out of control. And so what ends up happening is when you start headed to the love and the building phase, that destructive energy and force, then it gets into the positive, and then that's when it becomes a snowball effect of love and building, and the energy starts coming in. Just as it was, because the opposite of that was the destruction and the hate. So now you're on the love and the building, and the energy is building. Yeah, everything's building. But anyway, the big thing here is, we want to understand, we want to get to the root of all of this, so we just have a basic understanding of the root. And the way that I perceive it is energy and emotions. And for me, it's really understanding emotion, because I did another video where I talked about, changing my negative emotions. And I really talked about, emotions being the key to unlocking, the transformation that we seek. Because when we start doing this, we're practicing the skill of personal transformations. We are doing small personal transformations every single time we're doing this. So this is a big personal transformation, and as you do it more and more, you start building the skill of personal transformation. And that is a skill, and that's a process to work through. So I hope this was informative, because a lot of people, are in the awareness and the truth phase. And the next phase, so the big thing is that there's life after waking up from it and realizing the truth. And it is love and construction as opposed to destruction and building. And that's how we begin to have a life after a narcissistic abuse, and we start building the new life that we want. Because when we're in this space and we have energy, that's when we have inspiration. That's the space that I'm operating from is, I love myself and my close family people around me, and I've been building my energy, and it's only been making me stronger and more vibrant and healthy. And so I'm able to have a lot of inspiration, to bring forth and to ponder and think and have visions and ideas. And so you will get to that time in your life. It just takes the forgiveness and acceptance to get there. So I hope that this was helpful. And this is the first one of the kind of building a new life. And it's the whiteboard. I haven't used the whiteboard before for the videos, so you were stepping up the production quality. Anyway, as always, I appreciate your time, and look for the next one, which will be, I guess, sobriety. So look forward to that. Okay, have a good one.